All right, now that's where we're starting the conversation. And join us, we have Michael Adele, a human capital development expert, joining us right here in the studio. Great to have you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Quite
Thanks
an
for having me,
interesting, time, for workers. We have rising prices, so many headwinds at this point.
Yep.
Workers are faced with, so much, at this time, having to deal with squeezed income. So I'm wondering, what's the significance of, this celebration this year, 2022?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. And I joined to say Happy Workers' Day.
Happy Workers' Day.
But in reality, I don't think we should be celebrating. Because if you look at the socio-economic aspect of all workers generally in this country, it's been messed up. What do I mean by messed up? It's the combination of good roads, education, good job, medical care for everyone, but it's not there. You have a lot of things that's going on at the moment, how employers treat their workers, how they payment their wages and all that. You have inflation rising by the day. And we spoke about minimum wage. That was actually implemented about a couple of years ago. Now, the same price we're buying petrol, diesel, food, clothing, transportation has risen over around about 63%. And still people on the 30 minimum wage are still on the same 30,000 minimum wage, okay? And even in some states, it's not even been implemented. So it's something that we should be well concerned about, rather than saying we're celebrating Workers' Days.
So we shouldn't be celebrating, at this point.
Until all those issues that surround the disadvantaged workers in this country, then
there's actually so much, plaguing, the working class, in Nigeria right now. We've seen, the tussle, with ASU there. That's one of the issues there with salaries and all of that. That's also a big one, and it's affecting, students at this point.
It is. I mean, you have thousands of students being graduated every year. What are they going to get into? The jobs are not there. Okay, we have factories and businesses being shut down on a regular basis. Now you have the ASU strike, you have the doctor strike, you have everywhere just been in disarray.
Many strikes.
Too many strikes. And what are the causes of this? Unemployment, underemployment, inflation rising by the day, minimum wage not being implemented. I think we shouldn't be talking about minimum wage as we are at the moment, because all what we understand in this country is minimum wage. We should be talking about national living wage.
Right. But, looking at a post, pandemic world, at this point, even though we still have the pandemic with us, what changes do you think need to be brought to, labor laws in this country?
Right. Okay. I'll give you a typical example. We have a client who came to us, that was about a couple of months ago, who actually wanted to employ our services. Now, the email that they sent to us reads, we want XYZ someone to fill this position, but we don't pay for consultancy. So the question is, we asked them, so if you don't pay for consultancy, who pays that fee? Then it goes, the employee pays the fee. And I said, that is unethical. The best practice is you're hiring, you should be paying the consultancy fee for that labor you're hiring. So my question is this, the NLC are not really fundamentally or primarily doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're moving towards a different direction, going political now, as against being a pressure group to actually influence the government to tackle some of these issues. Now, you have workers who doesn't know what to do when they've been ill-treated at their workplace, or fair dismissal, okay? Giving them an extraordinary assignment that they're not supposed to do. The NLC should have or implement a law whereby there should be a whistleblower. If you're not being treated right by your employer, there should be a number to call for investigation. which they should be looking into setting up and making it functional employment tribunal courts and all that. Because all those are not in place, you have workers being mismanaged, unfair dismissal, low wage, and all that. Then that results into all these several antisocial behaviors.
We saw recently the one with the toxic working environment.
You can imagine that. Insecurity, because if they don't have nothing to do, they have to feed themselves. Their parents can't afford to feed them. So you find them going out to do all sort of crime, insecurity is increasing. When you look at that, it boils down to unemployment. Now, if you look at the percentage of unemployment in this country now, it's about 33%. That is a third of our population. That is alarming. We should be looking at now rather than talking about electioneering and politicking, because where we're going now is very uncertain.
Yeah, I'm talking about the unemployment rate at 33%. It's projected to even go higher. In 2022. But what do you think? Those that are willing and able to work, but can't find job. What should they be doing at this point?
Now, the government needs to put in a different strategy. We have a lot of our graduates who are there who doesn't have the skills to fill in those positions. Usually, in order to climb, you have the government partnering with training companies. You train and retrain your workforce for them to be able to match the jobs that you have in the economy. Okay? We should look into our tertiary education, the quality of the education they're actually going through. You don't just, you see, let me give you a simple example. If the UK has shortage of nurses, for example, they will design a program whereby they channel a lot of people to go through that, to go and do nursing as a course with different incentive to actually fill in the gap. We don't just allow, who regulates the courses that all these people are going to take in at various universities? Nobody regulates it. Everybody just do what they want to do. And we're not looking at, are these courses best fit for the economy? Look at our technical education. University is not for everyone. Okay? You have technical area where we could actually channel people to go and study skills. We used to have a lot of our students, our youth, going into technical education, studying plumbing, carpentry, painting, and all that kind of a thing. Now you can't even build a house in Nigeria without going out of the country to bring in skilled people, like people that make the POP, the plumbing, and all that kind of a thing, bricklaying.
Yeah, that's another issue. We've seen, artisans being imported.
Being imported. This is our technical education system should be addressing that. But what are the government doing about this? It's not been addressed. So we have our youth just coming out of university, studying any sort of a course they want to study. At the end of the day, they have nowhere to be, to deploy those skills.
And there's also another issue where we've seen some European countries actually recruiting, workers from here, in Nigeria, but they don't have to travel there. They actually stay in their rooms and actually work from home and are paid, by these companies out there.
Yeah, that is where I was talking about training. The ICT, telecommunication, those are booming area globally. Why can't the government invest in such avenue to train people? You're talking about people working from home. What about the brain drain?
Exactly. So we're having brain drain. People actually leaving the country.
Leaving the country.
And also some that are here.
Some are here actually
still working,
providing services for foreign countries. So obviously we're just training our youth in education for other countries to benefit, because we don't have the right foundation to implement, to make sure we put into use those quality of education that they actually go through.
Right. And, I've seen a lot of conversations, on social media about Gen Z, the Gen Z workers, in the workspace at this point. And I've heard about them being a headache for HR managers. I saw a couple of tweets. One is out there, says, one of my former staff went for lunch break and never came back, called her for days, unreachable. A week later, she posted a video of her plunging in Dubai. Her baby fled because of a small shout. So I'm like, are the Gen Z workers really that bad?
It is really, I mean, again, that's what we call, well, when we talk about brain drain, it doesn't mean everyone goes out of the country. Some are here, and somebody else is tapping their brain to use somewhere else. So when you start working with an employee, as an employer today, within, you'll be shocked that in the next, like what just happened on the Twitter, someone just gave him a call. Do you want to do this for me? And I'm going to pay you good.
So they have options.
They have options. The options are just open. So even employers now can't guarantee that so there is huge turnover of staff with many employers now. Because the point is, if you don't put the right things in place, I mean, we have to speak to employers as well. Most employers doesn't invest in their employee. Okay? When you ask them, what budget do you have for training your employee? They don't have a budget. They don't even have a plan for it. Now, the problem is they're getting scared that if they spend that amount of money to train their employees, then they're going to lose them somewhere else. But the point is, if the government have an enforcement that every employer that has over 3 staff train and retrain your staff, it will go around. If I train and you leave, someone else is coming in who has been trained by somebody
else. So that risk of, training and the staff actually leaving you.
Because if I join an organization now and I'm not you're not adding value to what I bring in, then obviously someone else has called me that wants to pay me more. I'm going to leave. But if you train me, you invest in me, not just for me to deploy my quality of work and your productivity or the service I provide for you as my employer, but again, I know I'm developing as well. That is not happening. So the government have a work to do. The training, every employer needs to train and retrain their staff.
What about the employees themselves? What can they do, to make themselves actually
again,
do better?
Some do better if they can afford it. The wage that you pay them, can they afford to go and pay some huge amount of money to get them personal training? But normally, government should have, like I said earlier, partnering with a number of training companies. The government have ITF, which I don't think is more effective because I've been there quite a few times to see how they operate. You should have partnering with various number of training companies, human capital development. And obviously, you subsidize those courses. So somebody can just say, okay, I'm going to do this course by myself. It's been subsidized. I can pay this. But that's not in place as well. So if I'm underpaid, I'm still struggling to make ends meet with that little amount of money I'm being paid. How much I'm able to get out of that money to go train myself and spend some money to develop myself? It's absolutely not it's impossible.
Right. And, looking at wages, it's been said that, inflation impacts everybody, but it also impacts the workers more. And, we've talked about wage hikes, but at the same time, the employers have an issue too because they're facing high inflation for their inputs, at this point. So it's hard for them to actually raise wages too, because they're also, feeling the headwinds. What do you think is the consensus here?
Right. I think we should be talking about incentives. Now, if I'm an employer and the government comes to me and say, okay, if you employ XYZ number of job seekers, graduates, I'm going to have to train them, make them more useful, not just for me, but to the economy. And the government says in return, it's a win-win situation. From the taxes, your corporation tax that you pay to me, we will give you maybe 5% back or 10% back. So if I can afford to employ or to increase the wage of the current people that I have, or to employ more staff, if I look into that and I find that there's an incentive for me from the government, I'm going to be able to do that because I know it's going to offset some of my taxes to the government. So, but if there's no help for an employer, it's going to be very hard for them to increase wages or to employ more staff. So the government have to look into that areas of incentive given to employers so they can work in partnership with the government.
So I guess everyone has a part to play.
Everyone has a part to play
in all of this. Well, it's quite interesting times, and we hope that the year kind of gets better. But the outlook, obviously, economists
It's actually difficult out there.
It's quite a difficult outlook, for global economies with all that's going on with the war in Ukraine, rising prices, and all of that, and workers still have to show up.
They have to show up.
Regardless.
All
right. Thank you so much, Mr. Michael Adele, human capital development expert. It was great having you on Business Morning today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now, so I will take the conversation further after the break. We're looking at the report from Amidst showing that MSMEs dropped by 2 million in 4 years. We'll be drilling down on that in a moment. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning.